You do the work, you pour your heart into building the business, into leading your team, into creating something that really matters. And somewhere along the way, a hostile voice in your head starts its relentless campaign telling you that you're just not enough. It's a subtle poison at first, a quiet whisper during a moment of doubt, and then it grows louder. It's the voice that says every single slip up is a sign of impending catastrophe, that every mistake is definitive proof of your incompetence. It's the voice that convinces you every win is just a fluke, a lucky break, a temporary reprieve before the universe corrects its error. And it's the voice that insists with absolute certainty that any second now, everyone, your team, your clients, your family, is going to discover that you're a complete and utter fraud. If that voice sounds familiar, if you feel the chilling recognition of its tone and its message, then I need you to hear this loud and clear. You're not alone and you're not broken. You're just overloaded. That voice isn't the truth of who you are. It's a symptom of a deeper issue, a warning light flashing on the dashboard of your life, and it's time we finally paid attention to it. Welcome to the Lead Well channel. My name is Trevor, and on this channel, we're dedicated to pulling back the curtain on the inner game of leadership. We don't just talk about strategy, marketing, or operations. We talk about the far more critical element, you. We explore the intersection of leadership, well-being, and what it really takes to build a business and a life that doesn't just look successful from the outside, but feels steady and sustainable from the inside. We're here to have the honest conversations about the immense pressure that comes with ambition and to give you the practical, grounded tools to build a business that doesn't break you in the process. Because true leadership isn't about having all the answers, it's about developing the inner resilience to navigate the uncertainty. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today. My name's Trevor, and the reason I'm so passionate about this is because I've lived the alternative and it almost cost me everything. Years ago, I dove headfirst into the notoriously brutal hospitality industry and started my business, Oko Rocco, with exactly zero real world experience. I had no formal training, no rich uncle, no safety net. All I had was raw, undeniable vision for what I wanted to create and a whole lot of grit. I was fueled by pure, unadulterated hustle. And you know what? For a while it worked. It worked spectacularly. The business took off like a rocket. We were packed every night. We started winning awards, getting incredible press, and being hailed as a major success story. From the outside, I was living the entrepreneurial dream, but on the inside, I was completely and utterly crumbling. The pressure I put on myself was a physical weight, a suffocating blanket that I never took off. My entire sense of self-worth was inextricably tied to how the business was doing that day, that hour, that minute. A great service meant I was a good person. A complaint meant I was a failure. There was no in between. And I never forget this one particular evening. We had just survived a ridiculously brutal Saturday night service. Everything that could have gone wrong did. We were short-staffed. A key piece of equipment failed. We had a series of demanding customers. I spent the entire night in a state of high alert, jumping from fire to fire, my internal monologue just screaming at me. The next morning with my wife, she was trying to talk to me to help me unwind, but I couldn't even hear her. It was like I was underwater. All I could hear was the Critic's highlight reel of the failure from the night before. This went on for a while, and over time it turned into anxiety and eventually panic attacks. One day I was driving with my wife and she was in the passenger seat, and I had a full-blown panic attack right there in front of her. My heart started hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. My vision tunneled, I couldn't breathe, I was gasping, clawing at the air, genuinely believing that in that moment I was dying. My wife made me pull the car over, her own face a mask of terror, and in that moment of pure, unadulterated panic, gasping for air on the side of the road, I had a terrifyingly clear thought. The voice in my head, the one that was telling me I should be perfect and that I could never stop pushing and that mistake was unforgivable, was literally killing me. That was the wake-up call, not a gentle nudge, but a full-force head-on collision with reality. It forced me to confront the unsustainable way I was living and leading. It forced me to completely rethink my entire philosophy on capacity, on success, and on the devastating power of that critical inner voice. That night was the beginning of a long, difficult journey to find a new way to lead and to live. If any of that story, any of that feeling of pressure and internal collapse is hitting home with you, I want to offer you the first step that I wish I'd had. I created a free, simple tool called the Business and Wellness Quiz. It's not just another online quiz. It's a carefully designed diagnostic to help you identify where the pressure is quietly, insidiously building in your life and your business. It helps you to see the warning signs on your own dashboard so that you can make a change before burnout makes the decision for you. It's the first step towards regaining control. The link's down below there in the description. It takes 5 minutes and it could be the most important 5 minutes you spend this week. That whole harrowing experience taught me something absolutely crucial. Negative self-talk isn't a bad attitude or a lack of confidence. It's a signal. It's a biological, psychological alarm bell for cognitive and emotional overload. It's your mind's way of screaming that your current strategy for survival is failing. More specifically, it's a sign of a psychological phenomenon called identity fusion. That's the technical term for what happens when you can't see where you end and the business begins. Your personal self and your social professional self have become so intertwined that a failure in the business feels like a fundamental failure of you. High achievers, founders, and entrepreneurs are absolutely magnets for this stuff. We pour our identity into our creations. In my world of hospitality, it manifests in specific ways. It looks like constantly and profusely apologizing to staff for tiny, unavoidable issues, as if you personally are to blame for a supplier's mistake. It looks like downplaying your biggest win, saying we got lucky when we had a huge client because the critic tells you. It looks like downplaying your biggest wins, saying we got lucky when you land a huge client because the critic tells you that you don't deserve to feel proud. And it especially looks like jumping in to fix every little problem yourself. Washing dishes, running food, taking calls at 11 p.m. because asking for help feels like a public admission that you failed and you're not capable enough to handle all of it. And let me be crystal clear, this is not just your problem, it's a business problem. When a leader models that self-critical, overworked, I'll do it myself hustle, it doesn't inspire the team, it creates a culture of anxiety. It suffocates trust and innovation. It tells your team that mistakes aren't allowed, that vulnerability is weakness, and that no one is ever doing enough. This directly leads to more stress, disengagement, and a higher turnover for the team. But the reverse is also true. When we as leaders model steadiness, self-compassion, and a clear-eyed approach to problem solving, it creates the single most important ingredient for a successful team: psychological safety. Psychological safety is the shared belief that it's safe to take interpersonal risks, to ask a dumb question, to admit a mistake, to challenge an idea without fear of being punished or humiliated. All the research shows that psychological safety is the secret sauce for a resilient, creative, and truly high-performing team. So the answer isn't to just slap on a fake smile and think positive. That's like putting on a small bandage on a deep wound that needs stitches. The real lasting fix is to change the underlying conditions, the overload, the blurred boundaries, the chaotic systems that give the negative voice all of the power in the first place. This is exactly why I developed the Lead Well framework. It's a simple, practical system for changing those conditions. It's about looking inward to see your inner patterns of your thinking, establishing rhythms to lighten your cognitive load, aligning your energy so that you're not operating in constant survival mode, and directing with clarity to build systems that stop guilt and overload before they start. These 7 secrets I'm about to share came directly out of that framework. They aren't fluffy pep talks, they are practical, operational shifts that change everything for me, and I know that they can do the same for you. The first and perhaps most powerful secret is name the script. This is the foundational practice of looking inward. Here's the truth about that negative voice in your head. For all its bluster and authority, it isn't creative. It's incredibly repetitive. It has a surprisingly limited playlist of attacks, and it runs the same tired old scripts on a loop. I'm not cut out for this. I should have done more. I've let everyone down. It's all going to fall apart. Your first job is simply to label it. This is a technique from therapies like ACT called cognitive diffusion. The goal is to create space between you and the thought, to see the thought as just a mental event, a string of words passing through your mind, rather than an objective truth about reality. So imagine this, you've just finished a rough Saturday night service and you're cashing up. Immediately the voice chimes in, I totally failed the team tonight. That was a disaster because of me. Instead of letting the heavy feeling of failure drag you down into a spiral of shame, you just pause, you take a breath and you label it. There it is. That's the I'm a failure script, or okay, interesting, the if only story is playing right now. Just by naming it, you perform a powerful mental shift. You are no longer fused with the thought, you are the one observing the thought. This simple act helps to untangle your identity from the event. The bad service is an event that happened. Your thought, I'm a failure, is just a script your brain is offering you in response. You don't have to pick it up. What you can try this week. This week, I want you to become a detective of your own mind. Get a small notebook or open a note on your phone. The next time that inner critic shows up and starts its monologue, write down the exact line it's using, verbatim. Then, underneath it, force yourself to ask this question. What is the objective, factual evidence for and against this thought? Don't rely on feelings. Find one concrete, undisputable fact that pushes back against this script. For example, if the script is, I let everyone down, a counterfact might be, the team and I served 150 people and we got through a difficult service together. This isn't about arguing, it's about introducing objective reality to a purely emotional narrative. Secret number 2 is a subtle but profound distinction. Reframe responsibility, not ownership. This is about combining the skills of looking inward and directing with clarity. As a leader, founder, or creator, you are without a doubt responsible for the business. The buck stops with you. But this is where we get twisted up. We incorrectly assume that being responsible for the outcome means we must personally own every step, problem, and mistake. We incorrectly assume that being responsible for the outcome means we must personally own every single problem, mistake, and failure that happens along the way. We blur this line constantly. A stock error happens in the bar and our first automatic thought is, this is my fault. I must have failed to train them properly. I must fix it right now by myself. A project deadline is missed and the immediate internal narrative is, I messed this up. I am to blame. Reframing this means consciously shifting your thinking from this is my fault to there's a gap in our system, or from I failed to this is a solvable process problem. Do you see the critical difference? You stop taking personal ownership of the failure, which is an attack on your identity, and instead you take professional responsibility for improving the process. It moves the focus from your identity, I'm a bad leader, to the operation. We need a smarter, clearer inventory system, or we need to reevaluate the project timelines. This is empowering. It turns a moment of personal shame into a productive, forward-looking, strategic action. What you can try this week. Think of one specific problem from the last month that you carried all on your own, something that made you feel the familiar weight of personal failure. Write it down. Now force yourself to look at it through the new lens. Ask, where was the system gap? What process failed? And then identify one specific person on your team who could be involved in the solution, or one specific system that, if improved, could share the load and prevent it from happening again. This is your first step from being a problem owner to a system builder. Secret number 3 is your secret weapon against chaos. Ritualize small boundaries. This is all about the E in my framework, establishing rhythm. Your inner critic absolutely loves and thrives in chaos. When you're constantly context switching, putting out fires, and reacting to an endless stream of notifications and demands, your brain is in a state of high alert and overload. This overload is called decision fatigue. Every choice you make, no matter how small, depletes your mental energy. A brain with depleted energy is far more vulnerable to falling for those familiar, destructive, negative thought loops. Predictable structures, on the other hand, are like a tranquilizer for the frantic mind. They reduce decision fatigue and they create stability. These small, ritualized boundaries are ridiculously powerful. They're not about building giant walls, they're about creating tiny sacred fences. It could be a non-negotiable 15-minute debrief with your manager at the end of the shift so that you can close the loops and don't take the stress home with you. It could be a simple act of closing your email and your Slack tabs for a 90-minute block of deep work so you're not reacting to every single ping ping on your computer. For me, a game changer was a dead simple rule. No phone for the first 30 minutes when I got home from work. It was a clear, unambiguous ritual. It signaled to my brain that the workday was over. It created a clean, deliberate break between work Trevor and home Trevor, allowing me to be present with my wife. These little rituals do more than save time. They cut down on decision fatigue and create vital pockets of mental and emotional recovery, starving your inner critic of the chaotic environment it needs to survive. What you can try this week. Your experiment is to choose just one impossibly small boundary and commit to it religiously for 7 days. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk alone without your phone before you start your workday. Maybe it's turning off all work-related notifications on your phone after 8 p.m. Maybe it's a default lunch so you don't have to make one more decision during the day. Don't nail it, just do it. At the end of the week, notice if your inner critic's volume has gone down, even just a little notch. The fourth secret is a fundamental paradigm shift. Track energy, not just hours. This one is the heart of aligning your energy. In our culture of hustle, we obsess over time management, cramming more and more into our 24 hours. But that's a losing game because time is finite. Energy, however, is renewable, and energy management is infinitely more important for sustainable high performance. Your inner critic always, without fail, gets louder and more vicious when you are physically, mentally, and emotionally drained. You already know this intuitively. The exact same mistakes, say sending an email with a typo made at 10 a.m. when you're fresh, feels like a minor correctable learning moment. But the exact same mistake at 10 p.m. after a 14-hour day feels like a definitive crushing proof that you're an imposter that can't handle the job. The mistake didn't change, your energy level did. Start paying meticulous attention to your natural energy cycles. When are you at your sharpest, most creative, and most focused? When do you feel like a zombie, barely able to string a sentence together? This isn't about judging yourself, it's about gathering data. And once you have that data, you must guard your high energy time slots with your life. Treat that time like a board meeting with your most important client. This is when you do your deep, strategic, creative work. Conversely, use your low energy periods for the easy administrative stuff, clearing out your inbox, filing expenses, or simply organizing tasks. Working with your body's natural rhythm instead of constantly fighting against it is a profound form of self-respect and a powerful strategy for silencing the critic. What you can try this week. For the next 3 days, I want you to be a neutral observer of your own energy. Set a reminder at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m. At each point, simply make a note on a scale of 1 to 10 of how energized you feel. That's it. No judgment. At the end of the 3 days, look at the data and see, do you see a pattern? Now look at your calendar for the next week and move just one important cognitively demanding task into a time slot where you know you'll have peak energy. All right, secret number 5 is to rehearse the alternative voice. This practice pulls from both looking inward and aligning your energy. Now, I want to be very clear, this is not about toxic positivity or lying to yourself. Blindly telling yourself, I'm amazing when you feel like you're failing, it's just another form of self-attack. It feels inauthentic and your brain will reject it immediately. This is about intentionally, deliberately building a counter argument that is realistic, grounded, compassionate, and steady. Think about it, your inner critic is loud, powerful, and convincing because it has had years, maybe even decades of practice. Its neural pathways are like superhighways. The compassionate, steady voice, on the other hand, is probably walking down a barely there dirt path. You need to give the other voice a fighting chance to be heard. You need to rehearse its lines. So instead of trying to flip I'm completely useless to I'm a perfect genius, try something more balanced and, more importantly, believable. For example, after that rough shift, instead of letting the critic's voice, that was a total disaster and it's all your fault, run unchecked, you intentionally introduce the alternative voice. That service was tough and we got through it. I am resilient. This issue with inventory is a systems problem, not a personal failing, and I can work with my team to solve it. The first voice is a dead end that leads to shame. The second voice is compassionate, acknowledges the difficulty, and opens a door to a productive action. It's the voice of a true leader. What you can try this week. Take out that notebook again. Write down your top 3 self-critical lines, the greatest hits album of your inner critic, the ones that you hear most often. And now for each one, I want you to write 2 realistic, compassionate, and constructive counter statements. Not affirmations, but grounded truths. Before you go to sleep each night for the rest of the week, I want you to read those counter statements out loud to yourself. It might feel strange at first, but you're literally forging new neural pathways, giving that quiet, steady voice the practice it needs to get stronger. Secret number 6 cuts right to the heart of entrepreneurial overload. Delegate with a brief script. This is a masterclass in directing with clarity. A huge number of leaders and founders secretly, or not so secretly, hate delegating. We tell ourselves it's just faster to do it ourselves, but beneath that is a deeper fear. We're afraid it will just create more work and we'll have to fix it, or that the person won't do it right, meaning exactly how we would have done it. And when that happens, it just feeds that inner critic that says, see, you should have done it yourself. You can't rely on anyone. The antidote to this entire vicious cycle is not more control, it's more clarity. Specifically, delegating with an extremely clear brief script. Instead of a vague anxiety-inducing requests like, hey, can you sort out the bar before service, which leaves 1,000 things open to interpretation, get surgically specific. Please restock the top shelf gins, wipe down the entire stainless steel station, and make sure the new cocktail specs are printed and in the binder by 5 p.m. A clear one-line brief that contains the specific task and a single measurable expected outcome removes all the guesswork. It empowers your team member because they know exactly what success looks like. It prevents the frustration of having to redo the work, and most importantly for you, it silences that delegation guilt because you've set your team member up for the win. What you can try this week: I challenge you to choose one recurring task that you always do yourself because you think it's faster. This week, you're going to delegate it. Write out one sentence brief that includes the core task and a simple, clear measure for success. For example, please update the weekly sales spreadsheet and email it to me by the end of the day Friday. Then, and this is the hard part, let go. Trust them to do it. Resist the urge to check in or micromanage. You're not just delegating a task, you're practicing trust. And finally, the seventh and most compassionate secret: build repair rituals. This is about the synergy of aligning your energy and looking inward. Let's be realistic. There will be days when your inner critic wins around. There will be a bad service, tough client conversations, or a scary financial month that the voice is going to get loud. The goal isn't to create a life where you never get knocked down. That's impossible. The goal is to have clear, pre-planned strategies for getting back up again. A repair ritual is a tiny, deliberate, pre-decided action that you take to recalibrate your nervous system after a hit. It's not about ignoring the problem or pretending that it didn't happen. It's about intentionally recovering. It's about emotional first aid. After a scathing guest complaint stings you, maybe your repair ritual is a non-negotiable 5-minute breathing exercise before you do anything else. It could be a quick, brisk walk around the block to physically remove the stress out of your body. It might even be a compassion check-in with a trusted colleague or partner, where the only rule is that you can just say, man, that was rough, without the other person trying to fix it. The key is that the ritual is pre-decided. In the moment of overwhelm, you won't have the mental capacity to decide on a healthy coping mechanism. You'll just react. Having a ritual ready means that you don't have to think, you just have to act. What to try this week? Choose one simple 5-minute repair ritual that you can deploy the next time you feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or attacked by your inner critic. I highly recommend simple box breathing. Find a quiet corner and inhale through your nose for a count of 4, hold your breath for a count of 4, exhale through your mouth for a count of 4, and hold that exhale for a count of 4. This technique is used by Navy SEALs to stay calm in high stress situations because it directly regulates the nervous system. Even better, agree with a trusted person on your team or a friend that you'll both try it this week and then check in on how it went. This adds a layer of accountability and connection. So where on earth do you start with all of this? Listening to a list of 7 new things you can do can be overwhelming in itself. Please don't try to do all 7 things at once. That will just give your inner critic a brand new shiny reason to tell you that you failed. This isn't another thing to be perfect at. Let's ground this in the Lead Well framework and make it incredibly simple. Just pick one small experiment for this entire week. Choose the one that feels the most accessible or the one most needed right now. Look inward. If your main struggle is being lost in the thoughts themselves, your only job this week is to notice and name one of the self-critical scripts. Just that. No judgment, no fixing, just catch it and label it in your notebook. The not good enough script. Establish a rhythm. If your life feels chaotic and reactive, your job is to introduce one tiny boundary. A 5-minute pause between your last work task and walking out the door. A 10-minute no screens buffer before you go to sleep. Something laughably small that creates a pocket of stillness. Direct with clarity. If you feel crushed by the weight of doing everything yourself, your job is to delegate one small, predictable task using a super clear 1-sentence brief and then practice the art of letting it go. This entire journey is about gradual, incremental progress, not a total overnight revolution. It's about learning to carry a little bit less, one small stone at a time, until you realize that you can walk upright again. Remember that phrase that I opened with, you're not broken, you're overloaded. That negative voice, which feels so personal and so true, is fundamentally a signal that you've been carrying too much for too long without adequate systems or support. It's a symptom of a capacity crisis. For me, slowly and imperfectly putting these practices into place was nothing short of life-changing. I stopped wearing exhaustion as a badge of honor, and I learned to spot the early warning signs of burnout, the irritability, the cynicism, the desire to hide, and see them not as character flaws, but as data. I started building systems in my business that actually supported me, not just my team or my customers. I learned to delegate without the crushing weight of guilt. And finally, after years of struggle, I finally managed to separate my identity from the day-to-day roller coaster ups and downs of the business. The goal isn't perfection. The goal isn't to one day be a flawless leader with a silent inner critic. That's a fantasy. The goal is steadiness. The goal is to become the calm, steady center in the storm of your own business, capable of weathering the highs and the lows without losing yourself in the process. If you got something valuable out of this video, if a light bulb went on for you, then please give it a like and a subscribe to this channel. It's a small click for you, but it really does help me. It helps the channel grow, and most importantly, it helps other leaders and entrepreneurs like us find content that actually matters for their well-being. And as always, in the midst of all the pressure to perform and achieve, I want to remind you that you, yourself, independent from your business or your accomplishments, matter. Don't forget that.